On today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I did a repair on a Husqvarna K970 ring saw. I've actually never had one of these saws in the shop before, so it is going to be a little interesting. Basically, everything's going to be the same as your traditional concrete saw, except for the ring instead of the traditional diamond wheel. So when I go through and check this and do the repairs, more than likely it's going to be something that I normally find when I'm checking stuff anyway. I'll go through the carburetor, the ignition coil, the spark plug, fuel, all the basics, and I'm sure one of those things I'll end up hitting what's wrong with the saw. So let's watch the video and I'll show you guys what I find. First thing I'm going to do is take the 4 screws off to hold the cover on, and then I'll expose the air filter and remove the air filter as well. Next, I'm going to remove the 2 screws that hold this housing on. There's 1 screw on the side and 2 screws underneath the air filter housing. These screws are a tight fit, so once you get them loose, go ahead and pull them back with the screwdriver or a pair of needle nose pliers. Next, I'm going to remove the fuel lines. The last thing to remove was the throttle cable. This one had a lot of debris on it, so it wasn't coming off. I took some carb cleaner, sprayed it in there, and I was able to remove it. Now I'm going to disassemble the carburetor, and I'm going to show you what I find inside before I run it through my ultrasonic cleaner. This one had a lot of small concrete debris inside, so I went ahead and cleaned it off. Now I'm going to remove the second cover so I can get the metering diaphragm out and clean it as well. One of the first things I noticed was the rust on the flywheel and the ignition coil. It was pretty bad, so I needed to clean it off with a wire brush. Saws can still run with rust on the flywheel and the ignition coil, but what you will notice is when the saw is getting hot and then it runs for a while, the saw will have a tendency of dying and not idling properly. Having clean contact points is going to ensure that the saw runs the way it's supposed to. When you replace the ignition coil, make sure that it is gapped correctly. If your saw isn't gapped correctly, you'll have problems with the saw starting or running properly. I use a rounded end tool to press this wire back into place. If you use a sharp ended tool like a screwdriver, you can end up puncturing the wire. Now I'm going to reinstall everything back on the saw and we'll try it out. So for this particular unit, I found a couple things wrong. The first one was a carburetor. There was debris that passed through in there. I showed you tearing that apart and cleaning it out. The second thing was the ignition coil and the flywheel. Both of those had considerable rust on the contact points, and that needed to be cleaned out before it would work properly. I also replaced the spark plug, cleaned the fuel filter, and replaced the fuel. So between all those things, the saw started right up and worked great. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like it and subscribe to my channel. There's a lot of other great content on there for repairs that come into our shop on a daily basis.